How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today I'm here to give you 7 things that you must know before you move to Aurora, Colorado, and we're covering them starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Evertson. Listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around the Denver metro area, then this is the channel for you. So that subscribe button and notification icon you see on your screen, make sure you click on that as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And as much as I try to be a little informative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the metro area's most talented realtors. And we're helping people move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, know that I am always the person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. There, winning if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is 7 things that you must know before you move to Aurora, Colorado. So good old Aurora, Colorado. First, the largest suburb of the Denver metro area. So Aurora meets up with Denver on Denver's eastern border and then stretches east. But Aurora also stretches north of Denver proper and south of Denver proper. It is a massive suburb. It's actually the 3rd largest city in all of Colorado behind Denver and behind Colorado Springs. And the size of that suburb is a big reason for that. Now, because of its size, something that's very unique to Aurora, and I feel applies to where I live, Lakewood, and I draw this comparison between the two all the time, because of how large they are. When you hear great things and bad things, when you hear the highs and lows of the different communities, they can both be true within Aurora. So Aurora has a reputation. It has a reputation for areas that are dangerous, reputation where crime is high, reputation where it gets a little sketchy. And that's not a lie. There are parts of Aurora that are probably less comforting for people than others. At the same time, there are dozens of neighborhoods within Aurora. Again, I make the same comparison to Lakewood. Dozens of communities within Aurora that people absolutely love, that they raise their kids in, that they take walks at night in, all of the things. So when you're starting to look at Aurora, the first and biggest thing that I have to stress to you is take the highest of highs with a grain of salt and take the lowest of lows with a grain of salt. The things that really concern you, dive deeper into that. If you're really concerned about safety and crime, really look into the neighborhoods that you want to look into, because when it comes to Aurora, there are plenty of communities that are going to appeal to a variety of individuals. Now, the number one reason that Aurora is as popular as it is, and the number one thing that you need to know before you make that move, is that Aurora has typically more affordable housing than you might see in other suburbs around the Denver metro area. Now, again, part of that is because of its size. There's just more room. There's more housing in Aurora. But because of that, there's also just different scales of builds. You've got some older communities, you've got some smaller places, you've got some larger places, you've got new developments that are, obviously brand new. So rents in Aurora can run anywhere from as low as $1,200 up to $2,000 a month. Now, obviously, that will depend on area, and it'll depend on how big that apartment, townhome, or home is. The $1,200 to $2,000 was based on apartments or condos. I should preface that. At the same time, when you look at home purchases, the median cost of a home in Aurora, just a detached home or townhome, sat between $500,000 to about $700,000 for that detached home. And you can find some below $500,000. That is not something that you can say in a lot of communities around the Denver area, typically because of limited space and limited inventory. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not to say that you can move anywhere in Aurora for between $500,000 and $700,000, or that you could rent something anywhere in Aurora between $1,200 and $2,000. There are certainly areas, especially in newer developments and newer communities, where that price point or that monthly payment is going to go up. And I should add, as we're talking about this, the price of condos or attached homes in Aurora sat between $350,000 to $450,000 as a medium price point. So again, something that will really drive a lot of people to Aurora, whether they are looking to buy a house or whether they are looking to rent a house, is that affordability and the different options of where they can live within that community. Second, and this is one that I hear a lot from people that I've helped move here or people who have talked about moving to Aurora, and that is from a diversity standpoint. Aurora is one of the more diverse communities that you are going to see anywhere in the Denver metro area, and that's part of its, it's part of its history, it's part of its how large it is, it's part of its affordability. I mean, let's be real. When it's affordable to more people are able to move there. So from a diversity standpoint, Aurora is going to be near the top rankings as far as seeing different cultures, different races, different lifestyles within that region. And that is a very popular reason why people will explore moving to Aurora. Three, and it's funny because people will say, outdoor activities, and they'll talk about the fact that even though you're in Aurora, you're close to the mountains. And that's true. I mean, you're close to the Rocky Mountains. If you live in Denver, you're within 45 minutes to an hour. No matter where you live, you're within about an hour of the Rocky Mountains, if not a lot closer. But the big feedback was the amount of just trails and walking paths and parks, just different things. And within Aurora, you'll see some neighborhoods that have been in existence for decades upon decades. And those neighborhoods weren't necessarily as planned out as newer ones were. What I mean by that is there aren't necessarily trails intersecting the communities, or there aren't necessarily parks strategically located or community centers strategically located. Again, hate to say it, I compare it to Lakewood where I grew up, where they just didn't do what we call a master plan. Now, as you get into newer communities in Aurora, you start to see that. You start to see how they really thought out how to make everything have synergy. So you have, again, trails between the communities. You've got playgrounds around here. You've got parks. You've got a lot of different trails, a lot of different reasons to get outside, your community centers, etc. So Aurora really allows that or provides that gamut of different options, and outdoor activities was high on the ranking as far as people I spoke to. Number 4, job opportunities as well as economic growth. So Aurora has a solid blend of, one, you're close to Denver. So if you are working in downtown Denver, if you're working in the Denver Tech Center, you are very close to those regions, or it's pretty easy to gain access to them for the most part. When we talk about how big Aurora is, if you are in the northeast quadrant of Aurora, getting down to the Tech Center, you're gonna take E470. It's not that terrible, but I mean, depending on where you are, but you're typically pretty close to downtown and you have a pretty easy drive to the Tech Center. But not only within that do you have, obviously big hubs in Denver and in the Tech Center, but Aurora has many areas where they have their own businesses operating. You're gonna see, as we'll talk about, healthcare is massive in Aurora, finance, tech, education, all major industries within Aurora. So not only are people able to travel to their work if they're in the city, obviously there's plenty of remote workers, but there's a lot of economic growth within Aurora as a whole, which is again part of the reason why Aurora has had the sustained growth and population that it has. Pretty much. We'll just keep throwing that out there. Number 5 is the amount of family-friendly communities within Aurora. And again, I want to stress this because I think that when people simply start Googling Aurora, listen, people love to speak the negative. And of all the communities in the Denver metro area that I feel just constantly gets knocked, it's Aurora. And I think that if you explore that community, you're going to see really quickly that again, are there areas you're going to want to avoid? Absolutely there are. I think you're going to identify them. I think they're going to be pretty easy for you, depending on your comfort level and what type of community you want to live in. You're going to find that. But when it comes to family friendly, there are a ton. I've people who live in Aurora, family members, friends, you name it. And getting out there and seeing the amount of events that are done, and not just Aurora as a whole, but different neighborhoods, different sections, different communities. They have their events, they have their block parties, they have a lot of things to get people out and about. Certain neighborhoods, some of which we'll talk about, or I will talk about, I'll talk about later as we get in this video, really do a lot within the communities to get different people out, whether you are a single person, couples, families, etc. They do a lot to get people involved. Number 6, a huge one for Aurora, and that is schools. So not just within the Aurora Public School District, but a lot of area within Aurora is covered by the Cherry Creek School District. And Cherry Creek is routinely one of the highest ranked school districts in all of Colorado year in and year out. Now, Cherry Creek itself, which is a small little section of Denver, and neighborhoods around it tend to be on the higher price point. So typically, there's a lot of popularity for families to move to Aurora, where housing is more affordable, and yet they have access to these really highly rated schools. So of all the things that Aurora gets a lot of credit for, if you will, is again, not just Cherry Creek schools, but also Aurora, their district schools are highly rated as well. And you can't talk about Aurora, especially not in the last handful of years, without talking about healthcare, and not just access to healthcare, but also what that's done for the economy in Aurora. So you have the Anschutz campus there in Aurora that's home to Children's Hospital. It's home to CU's hospital there. So two major hospitals there at Anschutz, both from an education standpoint. I mean, a lot of people go to school there to learn. A lot of people, obviously doing the residency, all those things, but great hospitals to begin with. And then you also have, that access for the community and all of those jobs within that community. It is also home, Aurora, not necessarily that campus, but right near it, it's also home to the largest VA hospital in the state of Colorado. A massive facility, relatively new, on the newer side, and a great facility. I myself go there. I've always felt as though I get excellent treatment at that center. Of course, veterans, depends on the visit, right? But overall, it's been great. So healthcare, again, not just because you have access to a really good hospital in that area, but also what it does for the economy has been extremely beneficial. Now, there are dozens of neighborhoods within Aurora that I would certainly suggest people take a look at. I want to list a few here and kind of mention them real quick. So Talon's Reach, one of the first ones I would talk about, located in southeast Aurora in an area called the Southlands, what we typically call it the Southlands. Southlands Mall is in that area, a large walking mall, a lot of shops, movie theater, restaurants, all of those things. And just across from the Southlands Mall are several communities, and Talon's Reach is among the more popular of those. So established in the 2000s, a lot to do there with the Southlands close by, and again, it's going to be part of Cherry Creek School District, multiple schools there. Now, this is where I'm going to get picked on a little bit. The second community I want to talk about is the Aurora Highlands, which I will be making a video on very soon. I have to get out there and fly the drone a bit more. The Aurora Highlands, east of Denver, obviously everything in Aurora is east of Denver. Let me correct myself. In East Aurora, along E470. So as you head out I-25, or north-south highway, I-25 hits E470, and E470 wraps around to the Southlands, wraps around to Talon's Reach, a couple other neighborhoods we're going to talk about. And then it curves and it heads north near the airport. And as it starts heading north, the Aurora Highlands are along that. A ton of development, a ton of opportunity, and a very popular community growing there in Aurora. Couple other really cool ones, Murphy Creek. Again, that's in the eastern Aurora area. They got a great golf course there, community center. Golfing is a big thing there with the public trails. Now, it is part of Aurora Public Schools, and that includes Murphy Creek K through 8, a very popular school in that neighborhood. Take a look at Saddle Rock, also in southeast Aurora. Not quite the Southlands, but towards that southeast corner. Seven Hills, which is south central Aurora. That neighborhood, built in the 1980s. I actually have a property that a family lives in over there. Seven Hills, to me, reminds me, I'm going to keep drawing Lakewood comparisons, and if you've watched the Lakewood video, maybe that'll be a good thing, but Seven Hills really feels like Lakewood to me. A lot of two-story homes, older houses, decent-sized lots, built in the 80s, mature trees, all of that thing. Has a lot of character to it. And then heading right back near Talon's Reach is South Shore. And there's actually three communities in there. South Shore, a lot of new build homes, great community in that southeast Aurora corner. So you have Talon's Reach, you have South Shore, and then you have Blackstone, with the three communities there. Really, I am highly impressed by all three of them. I didn't know a lot about Aurora before I started making these videos a few years ago, or at least I didn't know as much as I do now. And spending time in those communities, they are extremely popular, and I can see why. And then the last, Aurora Hills, kind of right in the heart of Aurora. Really great community. Again, that was developed in the 60s and 70s. It's part of the Aurora public school system. So again, you'll have some areas that are going to be covered by Cherry Creek, some that'll be Aurora public schools. And again, typically both highly rated. So overall, again, I try not to hide from anything. And one feedback that I got recently from some folks who watched one of my videos is they said, Jimmy, you talk about every city and you've never really said don't live somewhere, or that you didn't like it. And I have to tell you, that's true. But it's also my honest opinion. There are areas of Denver where I would probably not lean towards living. But for the most part, I'm a fan of Denver. I don't hide from that. It's part of the reason why I make these videos. Whether somebody moves here, visits here, moves away from here, I'm a fan of Denver. I'm a fan of Aurora overall. I do think that people who grew up in Denver tend to stay on the side of town that they grew up in. I grew up on the west side of town. I live on the west side of town. People who grew up on the east side of town tend to stay on the east side of town. Areas of Aurora that typically get a second look, you are going to hear about Colfax. So there's West Colfax in Lakewood, has a bad reputation. There's East Colfax in Aurora, gets a bad reputation. You know what some of the best restaurants and bars that I will ever go to? They're on West and East Colfax. Are there areas or sections of that road or others in Aurora that I would probably avoid or at least take a second look at? Probably. I will emphasize this. Anything you hear, do your due diligence. Take a look at crime stats. Talk to some people who live out here. Heck, give me a call and we'll have an in-depth conversation. But I would not talk about an area that I didn't feel good about if I truly didn't feel good about it. But again, that's a great opportunity for us to have a phone call, knowing that I'm always the person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. There, winning if you need me. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett. That was 7 things you need to know about Aurora, Colorado. Until I see you next time, peace.